Welcome back to Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Today's guests are the chairman of ODM and TNA, John Mbadi and Johnson Sakaja. And we've been talking about priorities for 2015. We've talked about the legislative agenda, and before the break, we were narrowing down on cohesion. We've addressed corruption to some extent, but cohesion and the IEBC, which has been a sticking point for the opposition chord. We'll start with cohesion because, of course, you chair the committee on cohesion in Parliament. And every time we see you on Cheche, we talk about cohesion.
Yes, I think the last time we spoke about it, because Mbadi will tell you that is a committee that took almost more than a year to set up. It's a young committee of both houses of National Assembly and Senate. But since we instituted the committee, we've been able to make a lot of progress. We've done some benchmarking. We realize that the best way to come up, to have national cohesion is by equalizing opportunities, creating equal opportunities for everybody. But
that's not new, though. I think Francis Olekaparo issued a report in December or November.
The cohesion index, and we're working with him. Actually, the first thing we did as a committee was to make sure the NCIC was reconstituted. Right. So I personally wrote to the clerk and said, according to the law, it's Parliament that initiates the constitution of the NCIC. And there was some resistance earlier because people wanted to change how that is done. Because that is a law that was there before the new constitution. So we got the NCIC in place. But beyond that, because the NCIC does mostly, remedial and, kind of interventions, we felt that we need to make sure that we have sufficient legislation that provides equity of opportunities, equal opportunities. So far, we have created an equal employment opportunity legislation that we'll be bringing to Parliament, to both houses. Of course, that has taken time to put together so that we know that anybody can have the same opportunity to get a job, no matter where you come from in this country, same opportunity to do business, and there should be penalties if anybody discriminates against you, because that is part of what is in the Bill of Rights, as Mbadi is saying. Number two, we have no national cohesion policy in this country. We're pushing for that sessional paper to come out so that legislation around cohesion can be put together. Because, you see, without that policy, everything becomes subjective. If you have 18 slots for cabinet and I feel that my community is not there, I will say there is no cohesion. We need to have certain thresholds. We must force this cohesion to happen. If you look at Singapore, the reason why they were able even to develop economically was that when you forced down cohesion, he said you must actually be able to get along. If you're staying in this place, you must stay with people of these different communities. We must be able to mix. So we're looking at just a lot of legislation around that, so that we have the institutions. An equal employment opportunity institution will make sure that all sectors of public service have equal opportunity for everybody. We're even thinking of having a system through which, when applications are being done for certain positions, you cannot tell where somebody has come from, so that anybody has the same opportunity. Then beyond that, we can do affirmative action. We should also not prevent anybody from getting a position because of the community they come from. Because that would mean then in certain ministries, let us go and fire certain people, So all of this it must be progressive and non-vindictive. So those are bills that we should look for.
But do you see people getting from different counties getting contract or jobs in the country?
You see, the first commissioned study we have done with NCIC is in the County Government Act. There's a provision that in any county, not more than less than 30% of those employed should be from the dominant community in that county. So, for example, if the dominant community in Nairobi is Europeans, at least 30% should not be Europeans, or vice versa, wherever it is. And we're trying to review and see.
What about contracts and jobs? Not jobs, contracts and what?
You see. Let me just finish on that. You see, once you do that, because if you don't do that, we'll create ethnic Balkans in our counties. That in this county, only a Luo can get a job, only a Kikuyu can get a job here, only a Luo can get a job here. And the biggest challenge we faced as a committee is that there is no county public service board that takes care of all the counties. So I have to deal with 47 boards of different counties and speak to them individually. And that's something we're trying to look at, because these counties might need a board, because there are certain human resources that cannot be. We don't have 47 neurosurgeons in this country, that and they need to do that. So that's one aspect. In terms of business, I think it is difficult to ask that in as much as we've brought the law for youth, for women, to be able to get these opportunities, we can't do it by tribe. then it becomes difficult. How do we ask which tribe is that company? Which tribe is the owner of this company? Then that becomes a bit difficult. But the aspiration is that everybody should be able to get a fair opportunity and a fair shot at life. Because once we do that, I believe we'll have, I mean, if a young person growing up in Nanyuki knows that they have the same opportunities to get a job, to get a good education as a young person in Turkana and in Kiambu and in Kisumu, I think we'll be able to bring Kenyans together. But beyond legislation, it's not laws that will bring us together. That is just to provide a framework. I think we as leaders must look at our rhetoric, at how we speak and how we display unity, and also the media should decide to black out divisive comments. That has been my position. If you people do not show us politicians insulting each other on basis of tribe, if you don't show ethnic chauvinism being displayed through rhetoric, Kenyans will not have seen it.
No, but hang on. I'll pick you up on that, because within your party, you have politicians, actually within both parties, there are politicians who spew out ethnic chauvinism. The public needs to know so that they can be held accountable. So that come 2017, you have a choice to kick them out. Come to 2017, we can ask you why you allowed that person to even get a ticket.
But you see, in both parties, when somebody spews ethnic chauvinism, they get more popular in their specific areas.
Isn't that very common in vernacular radio?
They don't get popular nationally. They get popular. I mean, they get popular in their local areas. So it actually helps them. Yeah. It doesn't go against what they want, and that's why they do it. But if I knew that if I speak in a certain way, I will not get coverage, because all politicians will get coverage, we'll actually even stop. But so I think there's need for concerted effort between political parties, media.
Doesn't it have to do with an animal farm mentality? Because at the moment, there is someone facing charges or being tried, Amal Wadi, on hate speech or making threatening comments to the president. But we see certain politicians saying vitriolic things against certain prominent individuals and certain ethnic groups. We don't see the commensurate action taking place.
I think what you're talking about is a case that we all know, and in that specific case, the member of parliament already has a case that is going on. People will say Wadis has gone fast, but it's because he pleaded guilty. So there's no contest. And once he pleaded guilty, there was a conviction. But still, I think first of all, I cannot defend the action of the court, because that is independent. It's not Jubilee that took Wadi to court. It is not Jubilee that prosecutes. There's an independent director of public prosecution. We believe the judiciary is independent. Of course, I heard court saying yesterday that Jubilee is using the old laws to clamp down. But it is not us who have jailed the person. The same law that the same court that gave a court victory the other day by suspending those clauses because they claimed it's victory is the same court that actually jailed the young man. Right. So we need to look at our approach to this in a very objective manner.
Mr. Mbadi, electoral laws, the IEBC.
Yeah, but before I come to electoral laws, I'm happy that we're
running on borrowed time, actually.
Okay, fine. I'm happy that we're discussing both the cohesion and electoral laws. Actually, this court coalition has already flagged. And if you look at our referendum question, one of them is heavily on cohesion. We are talking about inclusivity in government. I think that is one of the reasons why we almost lost this country in 2007. And if we don't do something about it, there will be a repeat. So we need first to make sure that every Kenyan feels, because one of the reasons why Kenyans went to war, almost went to war, is because one, of inclusivity, two, resource distribution. So if we try to fix resource distribution through this setting up of the devolution and the county governments, now we need to go a step further. A country that has so many tribes, and the article, I think it is 154 if I'm not wrong, of the constitution talks about a cabinet that reflects the face of Kenya. If you are the president and you are the deputy president, you must be very careful. How many ministers or cabinet secretaries are you including from your ethnic community? Because you belong to our ethnic community, and it's not wrong to come from an ethnic community. We must come from some ethnic background. But any action that you take as a leader is always being reviewed and analyzed by everybody else. Regarding IEBC, we have also proposed amendments to the Constitution on the IEBC and the conduct of election, because we feel that if you cannot get election right, then you can't get governance right, because people must have confidence in the outcome of election.
But your party, ODM, cannot get its own elections right. Men in Black, Kasarani, you know, you've roughed up you know, one of your party leaders, Kater, Homa Bay nominations, characterized by all sorts of mayhem. So what standard are you holding the IBC to that you cannot maintain in your own party?
First of all, if I sit here and start defending that what has happened in ODM is that there is nothing wrong with it, then I would not be helpful to the party. A lot of bad things have gone wrong in ODM. We've tried to compare with other parties, but I think that is also wrong, because first, we must show the other parties that we're the dominant party in this country. We must do things differently. Yes, I know my friend is laughing, but by the end of the day, the single largest political party at least that we can see
based on
through the numbers in parliament is ODM.
You only have 4 more MPs than
whether it is one MP, it is the dominant party.
But you measure the size of a party by membership, and you have the highest.
No, that membership is cooked. First of all, the figures we are showing at the registrar is completely faulty.
For them, we even realize
that some parties are claiming membership in areas that they don't even have a single member. But anyway, the point I was trying to bring is, as political parties, we need to show maturity and conduct our affairs differently. And I would promise you that ODM, the new leadership, I've just had Njau say something that is completely not correct, that the current office is appointed. You need to appreciate that people must propose leadership. And proposal of leadership can come from anywhere.
Failed.
The elections did take place, but we did an election. What do you mean by election? Party organs sitting to elect. I am chairman because I was elected through National Governing Council. But when we came from Naivasha, it was a proposal. Right now, Mutegi, just appreciate that Mbadi is an elected chairman of ODM. and it really needs to go out there. Because
so what are your priorities for ODM in 2015?
The same.
The priorities for ODM in 2015.
Sorry,
what are the priorities?
They did the election before the party was formed. But anyway,
you know, TNA is actually
the ODM. I don't know. That our viewers have been appreciating the discussion here, and so let's not spoil that feeling.
Thank you.
What are your priorities for ODM in 2015?
Our priorities as ODM, first, we have realized that the party has had a difficult past 2 years, 2013 and 2014. After election and even attempt election by the party, we continue to have those problems. First, we want to restructure our secretariat because that is a point of weakness. Number two, we want to review our nomination rules and internal rules of the party, because we have realized there is a lacuna in our rules and nomination and procedures that we need to address quickly, because we want to do our nominations early this time. At least 6 months to election, and we want to do them properly.
That's not early, given the problems you've had in the past?
And that is why I've said at least. So we can, that's not agreed on yet. The party organs will agree, but I would guarantee at least 6 months. Secondly, we want to revamp our party structures. We have our structures, the branches at the county level. We are thinking of taking them to sub-county level. We want to restructure those branches and revamp them, and go out to membership recruitment drive and other strategy that I wouldn't discuss, especially when my competitor is just sitting next to me. I have to be very careful.
But when I read the newspaper this morning, the agenda you said to do yesterday, I was telling Makali in the morning, these are petty reactionary things. That
like
you,
which one?
That you want
the strategy meeting yesterday.
The strategy meeting yesterday.
Like which
like trying to defend that young man who was jailed. That no,
I think that was not part of the strategy. That was
the one listed in the newspaper.
It is true. We discussed our strategy, but we also released a communication. So there was something of concern to us about that young man. And there are two fundamental issues that we flagged off. One is that we realized that the young man was jailed on the basis of certain draconian laws that have stayed in our statutes for long. And as a parliamentary group, remember that was a parliamentary group come Council of Governors meeting of court. So we, as a parliamentary group, we pointed out that we need to amend those laws that are outdated. But also, the other thing that we flagged off is the victimization of this young man. And as Uduak has rightly pointed out, there are politicians who have said even worse things, both in the social media and even publicly. But no action has been taken on them that is so punitive, like this young man who has been given 1 year without option of a fine and another year with the option of a fine. And we feel that is not really right. And we cannot leave any Kenyan, because as opposition, our role is to protect Kenyans of all walks of life.
So how do you, address that within the judiciary?
We said we will offer legal assistance to this young man, because he's not he doesn't have the capacity to be represented.
Okay.
So that is what we said, if you read our communication. But in terms of strategy, we had 4 agenda, and which I will not go to the specifics of. And you don't expect CORD to tell the public everything.
Point taken. Sakaja, I'll come to you. Has TNA undertaken the same strategy, priority setting exercise?
For 2015?
Right.
I mean, we are still following our earlier set strategy that has been set. Of course, it is always good at the beginning of a year to have a meeting where we reflect on the past year and our successes. And we intend to have a joint parliamentary group meeting sometime mid this month. We're trying to do it as a retreat for Jubilee leadership, and just to reflect on that. Of course, within Jubilee, we have individual political parties that we're really keen on strengthening and bringing them closer together. We want to work, more as a close-knit family of Jubilee. Of course, I have my own outlook of TNA. As a party, we've been doing serious recruitment that we did last year. We've been doing it on the mobile phones. TNA members only dial *245# and you can do it on your mobile phone through GSM. We've been doing recruitment of our junior believers who are below 18. Because the law allows them to be members of a party. Of course, not allowed to vote, but allows them to be members of a party, and that is going on. One of the main things that we will be looking at, and we'll be giving an announcement on, and how it is going to be done, is it is about time for our grassroots elections. We're looking at those structures up until the county level, how we can revamp them across the country. Right now we're in 32 counties, and we want to move into more counties as TNA alone.
Okay, I'm under pressure to wind up, but there are a couple of questions. William, now that teachers are on strike, don't you think it's a national issue that you should focus on, or are you more concerned with your salaries? And there's another stinging message from a viewer who asks, how are you going to shed the MPIG's message? Very quickly, any taker for that? It's natural for there to be a general disaffection towards parliamentarians world over. I don't know who has spoken about salaries now and where that has come up from. Of course, we are concerned about the teachers' issue. I've spoken about it. We've spoken about it. The Committee on Education is on it currently, despite us still being on recess. And we hope that they can get into. I mean, these strikes cannot be every time. We can't have a strike every year. In fact, we should tell them to give us their calendar of strikes for the next 5 years so that we can plan around those strikes. I think we need to conclusively deal with those promises made, starting from 1997 to the teachers. And 2002, when NAC was coming into power, actually that's when the bulk of promises were made. Agreements were entered into which could not be actualized. We must look at the livelihood of our teachers. I think they deserve to have a pay that is befitting of their dignity, as teaching has been a noble profession, and that needs to be within the context of the economy. Secondly, I think the second question is about MPIGs. Oh yes.
I think it is disheartening, that all members have been bundled into a generalized derogatory term like that. I think Kenyans have a right to express themselves in as much as they want to express themselves. Of course, I believe that we need to have certain levels of decorum as Kenyans in how we refer to leaders. But we as parliamentarians and leaders have a responsibility to earn that respect. And we need to show it by how we transact. I think December 18th gave credence to that term, not to honorable, as members would like to be referred to. So I think really it's on us. For us to shed that tag, we just need to behave appropriately. Okay,
so I'll give the final word to our viewers, just because they comment on your conduct. Are these the same, hang on, I've just lost it. I'm confused. Are these the same guys that did the drama debate, or are they speaking differently today? They're logical and dignified, or are they acting? I am impressed by the conduct of the two-party chairmen. These are the kind of leaders you should bring onto Cheche. They're quite sober and show leadership, unlike others. That came from Lumbasi in Kakamega. There's this from Peter in Nandi County. The debate demeaned the National Assembly to its lowest and desecrated the august house that needs to be sanctified before the resumption of business. But there's this from Leonard in Meru. The choice of the two gentlemen to sit in the first Cheche show may not be by chance. God may have directed the citizen to choose these two. They are young but wonderful leaders. The change of nation starts with one or two people. I beg them to shake hands in front of the camera and promise Kenyans that they will initiate change.
But you
so you always do. But I think what Kenyans are saying here is that they're fed up of divisive politics and seeing politicians fight, that you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yes.
And so you've set your priorities for 2015 legislatively. You've talked about your priorities for your political parties. But do you have priorities for the public that you serve in terms of how they hold you accountable? Very quickly.
I think for me, as I said, there's something we were doing at my church a few weeks ago at the Nairobi Chapel. And we're talking about how the public can be...
Our church, actually.
Our church, yeah, I know we go to the same church. You know, how we can get the public to engage, members of the church, and you know, Kenyans to engage. I think for a long time we have, Kenyans have relegated politics to just a certain group of people to make decisions on their behalf, but they have rights under this constitution to participate as much as possible.
And responsibilities.
We must move from, you know, I believe in less of haki yetu, more of wajibu wetu, you know. I think our colleagues might not think in that way, but I believe that that is how we should be looking at it. More of what is my responsibility as a citizen. We must look for ways to engage, and I urge even leadership that to find more forums to engage with the public. We need to create space in social media. We want more members of parliament on Twitter and on Facebook so that we can engage with people. I think Kenyans must realize that for us to transform this country, there is a role that leadership plays, but more than that, there's a role that an individual plays. Even in security, as the president keeps saying, we all have a role to play as Kenyans. And finally, I think something that I've been thinking about over the festive season, there used to be a time in this country when you'd go to your neighbor's house and ask for salt. When you would, you know, your kids would play with anybody's child. When you'd go and ask for an egg or for whatever. And we were like families. You know, there was social fabric that held this country together. We've become competitive to a fault. Many people don't even have any idea who their neighbors are, even your next door neighbor, especially in the urban areas. You have no clue until there's an emergency or until somebody drives his car through your vehicles. Then you realize who was living there, he has a gun and whatnot. I think we need to embrace more of brotherhood as a people.
Mr. Mbadi, any priorities for the public that you serve?
Yeah, for me, let me put it, when I listen to comments from the public, first, I accept that no human being would not make mistakes. We would all make mistakes. And I think it is important for us as leaders to listen to comments, whether negative or positive, from our listeners, the viewers, our supporters across the country. And I'm taking a lot of lessons from, by the way, what Kenyans are saying about us as a parliament. I wanted to say something about the teacher strike, if you allow me. One thing that I ask myself is, we all agree that teachers have not been treated well in this country. And it's not just Jubilee government. Let's be honest. I would be unkind to Jubilee to say that it started with them. They started from the KANU period, KANU regime, even the Grand Coalition and to date. One thing that I ask myself is, why do we treat teachers in a way that we think we can talk at them instead of sitting with them? The 9.3 billion that was offered yesterday, I was asking myself, couldn't this money be offered before the strike began? Probably the teachers would have accepted it. But when now you're bringing it late in the day, when you have already severed your relationship, or you made it so difficult for teachers to accept it, then you put our children in a very awkward situation. I think going forward, let us dialogue more. That to me is the key word. Right from the top leadership down to any level of position of leadership. Yeah. We need to dialogue more, as we dialogue today with my brother here, and we dialogue a lot with him, by the way, informally. I think we need to formalize it at party levels, and also to also urge our leadership to be dialoguing at their own level. This country, remember, we almost lost a country, and just two leaders, President Mwai Kibaki and Raila Odinga, saved this country. If those two leaders that day, that afternoon, did not come out to hold hands together and say, we have agreed to work together, I don't think we'd have Kenya today. And therefore, we need to appreciate our positions in leadership. this grandstanding and chest stamping will not take this country far. We know at one point one person will be in power, or some people will be in power and some people will be outside power. But those who are in power need to appreciate that even those outside power have something to offer and have followers. The people who are outside need also to appreciate that those who are in power have a responsibility to deliver to the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so that will be the final word for Cheche this morning. We want to thank you for your time. John Mbadi of ODM, the chairman, and Johnson Sakaja of TNA, the chairman. We thank you again for setting our agenda for 2015. We also thank our panelists, Mutegi Njau and David McCauley, as always, for their robust questions and opinions. You've been watching Cheche on Citizen TV. My name is Udwa Kamimo. Do enjoy the rest of your week and the year.